Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. I'm Perryn Keys, joined, as we often are, by Wilson Alexander, our lead LSU football beat reporter, and by the venerable longtime columnist, Scott Rabalais. Gentlemen, how are you all doing on this fine Monday afternoon?
Good. Enjoying the weather and trying to finish up Christmas shopping and all sorts of other things at once, while also, keeping up with everything that's going on with LSU.
I wonder, I'm sorry, Rab, but I wonder if maybe Kim Mulkey had a little Christmas shopping she had to knock out. Maybe that's why she wanted to
leave early,
duck out of the PMAC early on Sunday. She had a couple more things on her list she had to get to. So we will get into Kim Mulkey's early exit from LSU's game against Northwestern State on Sunday afternoon. We'll get to pickups in the transfer portal, a key departure in the transfer portal, and a miss in the transfer portal. But first, we have there was, of course, a bit of breaking news on Monday afternoon. Not terribly surprising, but Jayden Daniels will not play in LSU's ReliaQuest Bowl game against Wisconsin on January 1st. He has instead intended to. He intends to get ready for the NFL draft, and more power to him. We will get into all that, but first, of course, a bit of business. We are brought to you every Monday and every Thursday by Champion Wealth Strategies. Champion Wealth Strategies is a national financial services firm specializing in the capital markets, securities, insurance, 401ks, and college and retirement planning. Our broker-dealer is LPL, financial member FINRA, SIPC. As you know, investments are not FDIC insured, may lose value, and have no bank guarantee. Contact Champion Wealth Strategies and plan like a champion today. Again, we're here every Monday and Thursday on all our social channels, specifically our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. You can catch us live there. If you don't catch us live there, you can catch us after the fact on that very same YouTube channel. So subscribe to that channel. Subscribe to The Advocate, of course, if you haven't already, or if you don't already, whether that's our print edition, our digital edition, you can do that at theadvocate.com/subscribe. And of course, get a hold of our newsletter, our LSU newsletter. It's a daily newsletter, so you can stay up to date with everything. You get all the news delivered straight to your inbox, to your desktop, to your phone. To sign up for that LSU newsletter, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are also found every Monday and Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever other finer podcasts are found. And of course, one other bit of business, of course, here as we get nearer and nearer to the holidays. It's gift-giving time, and of course, what better gift to give the LSU fan in your life than some championship posters? And if not championship posters, which Rab has on display here, which we have display on over here, and elsewhere on this fine set, and elsewhere all over dentist's office and restaurants and other fine establishments, living rooms, all across South Louisiana, if not the nation. These things are iconic. Get one for the LSU fan in your life. And of course, we've got a Heisman Trophy poster or 3 now to ship along to the masses. So go to the store. Go to the Advocate store. That's store.theadvocate.com. Again, that's store.theadvocate.com. You can get 15% off your purchase if you enter the coupon code INSIDER. So, gentlemen, our own insider, Wilson Alexander, was on top of this and had it out fairly fast that this is not really a terribly big surprise that Jayden Daniels has decided to bypass the ReliaQuest Bowl and move on to prepare for the NFL draft. Had he wanted to play, nobody would have stopped him. God bless if he did. God bless if he didn't. And, this is going to obviously give LSU a chance to take a long look at the presumed heir apparent, Garrett Nussmeier. So we will see him on January 1st. Wilson, just sort of your general thoughts on Jayden Daniels' decision, and of course Nussmeier now moving forward.
This, as you said, was not a surprise from Jayden Daniels. It had been expected now for a while. Hearing they probably wouldn't be playing in the bowl game. It was just sort of a matter of when Jayden was going to announce it. He had not been practicing with the team, which started last Monday. He's been back in around Baton Rouge, but his attention is turned toward the NFL and getting ready for that. He's a projected first-round pick. He came in out of last season as probably a mid to late day 2 pick. Now he could be the 3rd quarterback off the board, maybe even higher. We'll see kind of how things unfold over the next few months. But it made all the sense in the world for him to not play in the bowl game, because why would you jeopardize that? With an injury either during bowl practices or even in the game itself against Wisconsin. You never want to play in fear, but there was also just no reason to put yourself in a bad position when there are millions of dollars on the line for him coming up here very shortly. And so gave everything LSU he had, and especially in a game like this. It's a 7-5 unranked Wisconsin team and the ReliaQuest Bowl, and it's just not really a stage that would give him any other sort of opportunity to increase his stock. And so now, like you said, get a great chance to look at Garrett Nussmeier, and this is going to be his first career start. People and myself initially even thought that he had started against Arkansas, or forget that he didn't start against Arkansas in 2021 because he played the majority of that game. Max Johnson started and played 2 series, and then Garrett came in and finished it in that overtime loss to the Razorbacks there. But he hasn't actually started since then, and so this will be his first career start and a chance to see kind of how he handles, knowing going into a game he's the guy, and then playing a full game as the guy. And as you said, LSU's been looking around at transfer portal quarterbacks, hasn't landed on anybody yet. Hosted AJ Swann this weekend for a visit, but it seems like he's headed to South Carolina, and part of that is because it has a lot of faith in Garrett. That guys looking at LSU know that LSU has a lot of faith in him, and that they're not just going to be guaranteed a job. And so this is going to be the first chance to really see what that faith looks like and how Garrett can do.
Rab, you had made mention on several previous podcasts that you would have liked to see Jayden play one more game, if for no other reason than just to be a little selfish. You're a football fan. You want to see this guy play one more time. And, maybe the traditionalist in you would like to see every player sort of close out things. But I don't. I mean, let's be adults. This is not how it works in modern college football. Malik Murphy, for crying out loud, the number 2 quarterback in Texas, decided to enter the transfer portal, and his team is in the playoffs. So that makes room for Arch Manning, obviously, to be the main backup in Texas. And just your thoughts about Jayden, and if you want to cap his career a little bit, for that matter, and not to mention, the potential benefits for having Garrett Nussmeier start on January 1st.
Yeah, as a sports fan, I wanted to see Jayden Daniels play for LSU one more time, to see him throw one of those deep passes that he just got so good at throwing, or take off on one of those long runs. This is a decision where you go from being a teammate to thinking about yourself. You're putting yourself first. And it's understandable. Football is a very rough business, and he's going into a very rough profession, and you wish him the best. And you get one shot at this, right? You don't get a do-over in professional sports. And as Wilson alluded, his draft stock has shot up so much. He's got a potential to make a huge signing bonus and be a person that a team maybe builds their rebuilding hopes around, or something like that. So it's a big deal. But the realist in me says this is actually what's better for LSU. Bowl games outside the college football playoff have certainly seen diminished.
It's good to hear you. It's good to hear you admit that.
True. It's true. I watched every single part of every bowl game Saturday, though.
Oh, I'll be watching, sure. But it is what it is. These are exhibitions.
Right. Yeah. Right. If you're not in the playoff, it's that. It's important that LSU finishes with 10 wins, but it's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is getting Garrett Nussmeier some very meaningful start against a good defense in Wisconsin. This is the strength of their team. And so that he's got some valuable experience before taking the first snap, we assume, against USC in Las Vegas in September. So this is, in the long run, going to be better for LSU, whether it doesn't help them win the ReliaQuest Bowl, but it could help them win some games potentially next season when you're at a 12-team playoff and you're trying to make it.
Yeah, we've only seen Garrett, in a very limited action this year.
Less than we expected, I would think.
Perhaps. Jayden certainly, LSU playing in so many close games probably dictated some of that.
Yes.
LSU, Brian Kelly kind of kept walking this line of, well, Garrett's, kind of trying to keep things in the mix and, make sure that he didn't maybe they had to kind of keep him engaged as the number 2. But he definitely didn't, it didn't seem like he was going to play a whole lot this year, and certainly probably played less than you maybe thought he would, because some of the games were blowouts anyway, and Jayden was doing what he was doing. There was no need for Garrett to ever go in. If Jayden had struggled at some point, maybe we would have seen Garrett. But anywho, last year in the SEC championship game and in the Citrus Bowl, Garrett was a combined 26 of 42, that's 62%, for 467 yards, 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and he had some really gorgeous long throws, particularly in that SEC championship game. And he was still making some bad decisions here and there with a couple picks, but you could see what is potentially there. But this year we've only gotten he's only appeared in 6 games. He's 17 of 33 for 196 yards, 1 touchdown, and no picks. He's never really had a chance to do a whole lot. I mean, we saw him at the end of the Alabama game, but that was a very strange circumstance.
Right.
Getting tossed in there. Sort of same thing very briefly against Missouri.
Right.
He just got thrown in for a second, and it was a bad snap, and so he was sort of put at a disadvantage. And so now, as Rab said, and as we've been saying, we get a chance to see it, and LSU gets a full chance to evaluate exactly what he can do in a game like this, and have a much better idea of what that quarterback room looks like going into the offseason.
That quarterback room may or may not have an addition, depending on, well, it's going to have an addition in the high school signing class. We know that in Colin Hurley, but it appears that LSU is at least shopping, at least doing a little window shopping, a little sniffing around to see if they can, just as you say, find somebody who's not necessarily a number 1 quarterback, or somebody who's going to be guaranteed, certainly somebody who's not going to be guaranteed the number 1 spot, but maybe somebody who can go ahead and deepen that group, deepen that room. Swung and missed on AJ Swann, the former Vanderbilt quarterback. But they did have two additions, not a quarterback, but two other areas of need. And one, of course, is Xavier Thomas, a wide receiver from Mississippi State. The other is safety Jayden Gilbert from Texas A&M. Both have Louisiana ties, and we've discussed both of these young men on this podcast before. But Wilson, now that they're actually in the fold, if you just want to give a quick rundown on each of these players, what they give.
Yeah, absolutely. And one note about AJ, I mean, that's the thing, like what we're saying with LSU and what it can kind of offer a transfer portal quarterback is it can't offer you the world.
Right.
And it's not going to go out there and say, here's a bunch of NIL money, and it's not going to say, here's a starting job.
Florida State can go after Cam Ward because Jordan Travis is gone.
Exactly.
Jayden Daniels is gone from LSU, but there's somebody who's most certainly waiting in the wings who they think they've been very high on from the start.
Exactly. And so, like, with AJ, like him going to South Carolina, he's got a probably much better chance to start there. And AJ hasn't come out and said that officially, but that's what reports are, that he's expected to do that. And so when you see like kind of who else he's been evaluating at quarterback and linked to so far at quarterback in the portal, it's none of the like big names for that very reason. And so, you say swung and missed on AJ, and I guess you can't say that because like they had him in on a visit this weekend, and it looks like he's going elsewhere. But it's just going to be hard for LSU to land the right guy at quarterback out of the portal. As for the other two, like you said, I mean, we'd been kind of waiting for LSU to make some noise in the transfer portal. That finally happened on Friday. Jayden Gilbert was the first one to come out with his announcement. This is a safety who is somebody who looks like he'll immediately slide into the starting lineup. We're still waiting to find out what Major Burns is going to do next season. Say he comes back, then LSU probably has Jayden and Major at safety. Andre Sam's ineligible to return. I mean, he's exhausted all of his eligibility, and obviously Greg Brooks is still recovering from brain surgery, and no idea even at this point like what his football future would look like.
Sure.
And so he would have been out of eligibility after this season anyway. But all to say, Jayden slides into somebody who started 10 games at Texas A&M in 2022. He started the first 2 games this season as well, then suffered a shoulder injury, ended up having to have season-ending surgery. And so now LSU's got a guy who they really needed to improve the defensive backfield, and Jayden is somebody who looks like he will be able to do that. We'll have to kind of see how things play out to exactly see kind of what it'll look like in terms of how he plays and what he's doing within the scheme and all those sorts of things. But this is a guy with SEC experience, and that is invaluable for this secondary right now. And then Xavier is a instant upgrade at punt returner,
right?
And who can also really be in the mix of wide receiver, and we can get into that a little bit further if you'd like to.
Rab, Xavier Thomas. Let's play pretend here and say Xavier Thomas comes in, which he will. Kyron Lacy comes back, and then you have a handful of freshmen at the wide receiver position. They're losing obviously 2 superstars in Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. Yes, we assume. We think that's going to happen. We don't know for sure, but we assume they're going to lose those 2 players. If it's Lacy, Thomas, and these handful of sort of star freshmen that LSU brought in this year, is that enough for LSU at wide receiver?
Well, enough is always a little bit more, obviously. And you expect somebody like Shelton Sampson to blossom in his second year in the program and that sort of thing. it wouldn't hurt if LSU got another player in the portal, but I think they could be okay with what they have coming back, what we project they have coming back, what they have coming in. As we said before, LSU is number 1 in the country this year in total offense and scoring offense going into bowl season. It would be unfair to expect any offense next year without Jayden Daniels and without Malik Neighbors and possibly without Brian Thomas to be quite that good. So the defense is going to have to rise to the occasion if LSU is going to be in the hunt for a playoff spot in the 12-team playoff, which, as we said, is going to be the minimum from now on for a program like LSU going forward. You don't make the playoff, it's a failed season. So they could use another body, sure, but I mean I think they got a lot to work with, and having seen the development that we've had with the wide receivers, particularly Brian Thomas this year, how he shot up into, I don't think going into the season we talked about Brian Thomas as someone we thought, maybe he won't come back.
It was, and it was all with him. It was all, is he going to take that next step into being a true, number 2, but not even just number 2, somebody who can fully share the load and be a proven SEC wide receiver. He had never gone over 400 yards in back-to-back seasons. He was in the 300s, if I'm remembering correctly. Or he was in the 400s, I think, over 5. I think he was in the 300s and never went over 4. And so, it was all about, can he take that next step and become that, that asset, and he did.
And he stepped into a role where he was flirted with being one of the 3 finalists for the Blitnikoff Award.
He was a semifinalist.
Yeah, I mean, he made the final 10. So very impressive stuff. So you got to give them some credit on the LSU offensive coaching side that they can develop these guys and make them a credible force next year, if not quite what they've had in 2023.
But here's why the addition of Xavion is important, and also. If LSU continues to, and probably will continue to look at if there's any other experienced wide receiver who they can bring in, because they've been, I think, evaluating different people and kind of seeing what they might, like, is that we're talking about Brian Thomas's development, and even Malik Neighbors, who took another step after having a 1,000-yard season already as a sophomore, got even better. That all happened as a junior. Mm-hmm. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, their breakouts, really full-on breakouts, juniors. They had a couple years on the field and a couple years of experience. And so when you look at LSU, you've got Kyron Lacey, who's had a couple years of experience. So maybe he can have that breakout next year if he comes back. That's kind of what Brian Kelly and LSU is pitching to him. Come back, be the number 1, take that next step, increase your draft stock. But there's nobody else who is in that receiver room right now who has even played to the level that Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors had through their first few seasons. Those freshmen... the only other people with a catch this year, the only receivers, with a catch this year, outside of the main 3, were Chris Hilton and Aaron Anderson.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
And none of these freshmen had a catch. Shelton dropped a couple of touchdowns in the Grambling game, and so it's, I would think, be a lot to expect them to be able to carry the room as when they're getting in their first season. So it's going to be important. I think Xavion can come in right away and contribute probably, and at least compete. And it might be important to get yet another receiver just to kind of continue to bridge that gap if it's somebody with who they like, because don't just swing in just for the sake of swinging, but who they like, who can kind of give these youngsters time to get on the field, but also time to develop.
Right. This is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. You know where to find all our writers' great work. That's at theadvocate.com. So please, if you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's our digital edition or print edition, some sort of combination of both. Go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. While you're at theadvocate.com, please sign up for our LSU newsletter. You can stay up to date with all the news regarding quarterbacks leaving, quarterbacks coming, players in the transfer portal, not in the transfer portal, recruits, LSU women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, all of that. You can stay up to date with all of it. Get the headlines delivered all straight to your inbox with the LSU newsletter. That's go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter to sign up for that. We are here every Monday and Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. We're also here, of course, live every Monday and Thursday afternoon on all our social channels, specifically our YouTube channel. That's LSU Tigers at NOLA, LSU LSU Tigers on NOLA.com YouTube channel. We're there live, and if you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact. So please subscribe to that channel as well. We are brought to you by Champion Wealth Strategies every Monday and Thursday. To find out more about Champion Wealth Strategies, please go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. Speaking of, we did mention that there was a departure in the transfer portal, and that was one Sage Ryan, former 5-star prospect from Lafayette, kind of a do-it-all athlete who certainly sort of did it all, or did maybe more than he was expected to do, particularly at the cornerback position this year. Was it a surprise to you, Rab, and or Wilson? Was it a surprise to either of you gentlemen that he entered the portal?
Yeah, I mean, because they played him at cornerback, they played him at safety. I mean, he like you said, he got a lot of playing time. I think started 9 of the 12 games this season, and they really needed him. Obviously, the numbers got so thin in the secondary, but perhaps he saw the writing on the wall with some transfers or with more players coming in. So it's like it's such a mercurial thing now. The transfer portal. I mean, you have guys like you mentioned the backup quarterback at Texas, who's one play away from playing in the national semifinals in the Sugar Bowl. And kids leave now, and it doesn't have to be for a great reason. So it's kind of unfortunate, but I don't want to criticize too much, but it's hard to say that he ever quite lived up to being a 5-star player on the field either. So it's maybe the chance to start and thrive at another school where the expectations aren't quite so high would benefit him.
And as for what it does for LSU in the defensive secondary, Sage leaving, like you said, the cornerback was not a position that he had played before this season.
Right.
And they moved him over there late in preseason practice, and when I think it must have become clear to LSU that, okay, we got to figure out something here on the cornerback. They liked Sage's tackling. That's kind of part of what got him on the field there early, and he ended up being a guy who by the end of the season, Brian Kelly said was kind of like, we can put them on the best player and feel fairly good about it, the best wide receiver. And he never necessarily had a big flash moment there at corner, but it was somebody who at least LSU didn't have to worry about as much at that position, which was so troubled all season. And so now, because he said that he is in his post, he would be entering the portal effective immediately. According to I think it was On3, he hasn't officially entered the portal yet, so we're still kind of waiting for that to happen. But it does sometimes take a couple days for all that to kind of show up. And so, but he's on that track. LaTerrence Welch has already transferred to Arizona State, and so now when you're looking at what LSU's got in the secondary, at least at cornerback specifically, it's Javian Tobiano, who started 2 games, Ashton Stamps, a freshman, who started 3 games, Jeremiah Hughes, a freshman who didn't play a whole lot this season, and J.K. Johnson coming off of an injury in which he didn't play all year,
right.
And then Zy Alexander, we don't know what his
also
stats
coming
is
off an injury,
like.
right?
Yeah, from what we understand, suffered a significant knee injury, and so it's unclear exactly when he'll be ready to play again, when he'll be back, and so LSU, is bringing in some corners in this freshman class. And yet it is a position that they're continuing to look at in the transfer portal because maybe Javian Tobiano and Ashton Stamps can take that step into becoming, they looked pretty solid, in their starts at the end of the regular season, but if they need to keep getting better, and so LSU needs to probably get some guys in with a little bit more experience in front of them, because we also don't know yet what's going to happen with Deuce Chestnut and Denver Harris, but you can't exactly, after how this season went, count on them being major contributors next season.
So LSU, speaking of recruiting, signing day, the early signing day is upon us, certainly with less ballyhoo than signing days used to be when it was just one in February. LSU has, and by the way, we don't expect, correct me if I'm wrong, Wilson, but we don't expect that LSU will be involved on Wednesday in any kind of situation where some kid shows up with 3 hats on a table and makes a decision. It's pretty much, they've got what they've got at this point, 27 commitments, fairly solid in the as far as where they're going to go.
They could get one more, another offensive lineman, Cohen Eccles, a former Texas A&M commitment. He backed off that, but he's expected to announce on Friday, not on Wednesday. But that's the only lingering recruit. LSU kind of got in the mix with him late. one of a few Texas A&M recruits they either have flipped or are trying to flip, and here down the stretch, obviously the biggest one being Dominic McKinley.
About to say he's the only recruit with some intrigue for this round.
Well, no, he's announcing in February.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about Eccles. Eccles is the only one.
Yes. In this in this coming up period. Otherwise, LSU's locked up its class and expects everybody to sign there on Wednesday. Shouldn't be a whole lot of fireworks.
So, incidentally, they've got true cornerbacks in the class to this point. Certainly some athletes in there who could wind up at that spot. But the class itself is ranked number 12 in the nation. And I know we've discussed this before. Still a long way to go. And we've seen LSU close certainly with a flourish in previous years. But number 12 in the nation. Rab, I'll put this to you. I know you're not necessarily huge on recruiting rankings, but we've discussed this before, but it's just how much of a concern is this that these guys haven't gotten? They were number 5 last year, but this is number 12, and that's a big difference when you see, just as Wilson has said previously, Georgia, Alabama, the heavyweights are always up there at the top of the recruiting rankings. LSU don't they have some work to do in this class?
Yeah, sure, and they have work to do going into February. Wilson mentioned Dominic McKinley, and they have work to do. Continue doing the transfer portal. You have to look at the whole ranking, the high school recruits and the transfers, and see get in for my money. Some of these transfer portal guys, at least on a short term basis, can be something you can count on more. You don't really know how some of these recruits are going to turn out. We see it every single year, of course, that the guys are ranked really high and then they don't pan out, or whatever, and then someone who's not heralded comes up. So, I think it's like it's not exactly apples to apples when you're correlating recruiting rankings with national rankings and national championships. Yes, you mentioned a couple of programs that are right at the top of the SEC, Alabama and Georgia, that everyone is shooting for in the SEC and around the country to emulate. But at the same time, it's not every single thing. I've looked at Clemson's recruiting rankings over the years when they had it going really good, and it's like, well, it's not super impressive at times. And Michigan
I'm sorry.
Michigan's number 1. They haven't had a number 1 recruiting class. Right. Any of the 4 the team is made up of.
I was just going to say that the team that LSU is playing in this ReliaQuest Bowl is sort of famous for never being anywhere, a lot of times not even in the top 25 in terms of recruiting class, Wisconsin.
Right.
And seem to get the most out of what they've got. Virginia Tech for years under Frank Baber was another example. And Washington, who's in the semifinals, was not. I'm sorry, go ahead, Wilson.
Well, just by the same token, I mean, those are all programs that LSU isn't necessarily measuring itself against.
Correct.
When you're measuring yourself against Alabama and against Georgia and against these other SEC teams where recruiting matters a great deal, that it always will. And so it is a mild concern that they're number 12, but I think we kind of got to wait to see how the dust settles.
Right.
If they can finish with Dominic McKinley and Terry Bussey, the 5-star athlete, and flip those two from Texas A&M between now and February when they sign, this class's ranking will go up a little bit, and they'll have a really, I think, well-rounded group in terms of the position groups that they're addressing and all that. I mean, this is a class, depending on what happens with Eccles, I mean, they could have 6 offensive lilinemen in this class. And, he might not end up at Auburn or something like that, but, like, I mean, they brought in, I think, they're addressing positions, and honestly, it's just going to, kind of like you're saying, like, not every class, the initial ranking, like, it doesn't always reflect what's going to happen with the class. And so, like, maybe we'll look up in 2 years and it'll be like, oh, okay, they were able to find some guys who maybe weren't as highly ranked and develop them and get a lot out of them. We'll see, but it is like a mild concern that it's overall number 12. But they can finish on McKinley in particular. They will have done a really good job of recruiting Louisiana this cycle, and that is a good sign.
Look, you always want to be in the top 10. You always want to be in the top 5, like LSU was last year. But I don't think I have a hard time pushing the panic button for LSU that they're currently 12th. And to me, this recruiting class, they're still trying to build up the roster to where it needs to be. Right? I mean, from the kind of disastrous way that things were in 2021. And to me, it's more important that they get players at these positions of need. You mentioned you got a lot of offensive linemen. That's good. You got defensive backs. That's good. You always want a quarterback. They got a quarterback in the class in Colin Hurley. And looking forward, they're considered the leader for Bryce Underwood in 2025, the number one quarterback in the country and the number one player in the country, arguably the Arch Manning of the 2025 class, you could say. So, the Brian Kelly has this. That was one of the knocks on him when LSU hired him. He's not known as a great recruiter and all this thing. Ed Orgeron was known as a great recruiter, and he's not the coach anymore. So it's not every single thing. It is very important, but it's not the be-all, end-all of the whole program. You got to get them and you got to develop them.
Worth noting that 2 years ago, right now as we spoke at this time, Harold Perkins was a Texas A&M commitment. And, of course, Brian Kelly could not address specific recruits at that point, but he said, hey, in so many words, everybody's just keep waiting, hang on, and then sure enough, in February, he flips, he comes to LSU, and the rest is history. That was certainly a huge pickup in his first class. Wilson, I wanted to get your take on a couple of we mentioned one of these players already, but a couple of players who may be some potential early contributors. The first one, the most obvious one in my mind, is Trey'Dez Green, the tight end from Zachary and or the Felicianas, however you want to look at it. Just anything you want to add on Trey'Dez and just what makes him sort of really an exceptional athlete.
I mean, he can jump out the gym. I mean, he's has a basketball background and can kind of go. This guy can go above the rim. He's like 6'6", and so that's already on just by itself a very intriguing kind of prospect to come into the class because LSU. Now, when you start to look at the tight end room, has gotten pretty strong. I mean, Trey'Dez is, it depends on where you look, but is basically one of the top 2 tight ends in the country. And so you bring him in. You've got Mason Taylor, who's going to be a junior. Didn't have a great sophomore season, but we know what he has done as a freshman. And he should be able, especially in this whole year, he was dealing with an ankle injury pretty much all season. And so, maybe he's still your starter. You got Mark Way coming back. You've got Kamorian Pimpton, who we saw him his catch radius many times in preseason camp, and he had to continue to develop. But
he looks the part.
If he can continue to develop into a point where, as a sophomore, he is kind of ready to play, Trey'Dez, might have a fight on his hands to get on the field early, but he's the kind of prospect who you think could contribute in some ways, particularly as a receiver up the seam in the red zone. So we'll kind of see once he gets on campus and kind of how they're using him, what that continues to look like. But I mean, even if he doesn't contribute right away as a freshman, he's someone who I think we will see have a significant impact at LSU-wise there.
And we do know that throughout the course of his coaching career, Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock, for that matter, have put a premium on finding a way to find great tight ends, develop great tight ends, and utilize them to the best of their ability. Another player I wanted to mention was Deshaun McBride, safety from Denham Springs.
Yeah, he's the word safety is frankly part of what is so important about that LSU signed him. It's another local guy, like we said. LSU, other than the fact that they hadn't gotten Dominic McKinley and they didn't get Wardell Mack, has recruited Louisiana pretty well in this cycle. Deshaun's one of those guys who is really highly ranked as a top 100, top 50. I mean, again, it depends kind of where you're looking in terms of recruiting rankings. And could he be someone who comes in and plays right away? We'll see. I mean, like we just saw, they went and got Jayden Gilbert because clearly they want some folks with experience at safety. But him and Joel Rogers coming in at safety, that is 2 additions that look like they're going to be really solid. And that's important for LSU in this defensive, in the secondary, in order to get guys like that in the program, get them developing, and we'll see if he can contribute as a freshman or not. With all those guys, I just kind of have to wait and see it, you know, and see how it goes, because they got a big transition to make from high school to college. But at this point, it's just significant that they have somebody as highly ranked as a safety as him coming into the class.
He was not a safety, obviously, in last year's class, but I would guess at this time last year we would not have expected Ashton Stamps to maybe even play. Maybe he would have been a redshirt candidate as far as we knew. Now, maybe some of that was necessity, but the fact of the matter is he certainly looked more the part than most everybody expected him to look as a freshman. So you never know who exactly is going to make an impact immediately.
Yeah. No, certainly not. I mean, this last class is a great example of that, and everybody was pounding the table, and I think still rightfully so, for Deshaun Womack to play a little bit more than he did, but he wasn't ready to be a 3-down kind of player.
Right.
They probably could have found more of a role for him, but him and Lance Hurd were the two highest ranked guys in the class. And while they played at times this year, they didn't have a significant impact on the season. LSU's offensive line was so strong that Lance didn't really need to get in there, and Miles Frazier did a good job of kind of securing his job at right guard so that LSU didn't kick Emory Jones inside anyway. But like you're saying, those two were the highest ranked guys in the class, and they didn't play a whole lot this season, even though, again, you could make a case for Deshaun to have gotten more playing time than he did, at least in some capacity.
Rab, I'm going to put you on the spot here. LSU obviously faces the Badgers 11 a.m. January 1st in Tampa. The transfer portal window closes on January 4th. Do you expect coming out of that game that there might be one or two players who decide, you know what, I don't like the looks of these things, and I don't know if I'm going to get what I want out of this program, so I'm going to see if I can't sniff around some? Would that surprise you?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, that's very late in the game, but yeah, there's always going to be somebody, and how they do in the bowl game or not, or they play, whatever might tip the scales, in that regard. So, no, it wouldn't surprise me. This has become such a volatile thing, with the transfer portal. It doesn't take much to send someone packing or have someone join your program. So, no, that wouldn't surprise me at all if there was still a couple of moves in that regard.
Especially because you just have to enter by that date. You don't have to have your new school yet.
Right. So, one last thing before we get out of here. I think we'd be remiss if we did not mention, Rab, you were in the PMAC on Sunday. Kim Mulkey, as I said, she must have decided maybe she was just bored by what she saw. LSU was so dominant against Northwestern State. She realized she had to go get a couple of extra crates of eggnog for the Christmas party she had going on. She had to duck out early. Were you surprised by Kim Mulkey getting ejected for a double tech there in the second half?
I'm surprised it was her first ejection as LSU's coach. We were talking about this. Of course, we're all abuzz people at the game, and I was talking to another sports writer, remembering how she said at the SEC tournament, her first season in 2022, she was trying to get thrown out of the game against Kentucky, and when they lost, and she's like, the guy just wouldn't throw me out. But she
reminiscent of Hoosiers when Gene Hackman's begging to get thrown out.
Guess you got your reasons. You're out of here. But she had her reasons yesterday. It was kind of this was something that she had on her mind, right?
Yes.
It was kind of a flat atmosphere in the PMAC. The team was kind of flat. And then they were going to win the game. And when she got thrown out, it was like 71-32 or something like that. And with 5 minutes left, and the call, it was a charging call on Anissa Morrow, and I thought the Northwestern State player was moving her feet, but it wasn't like the most egregious call I've ever seen in women's basketball refereeing history. And she just went off, double technical, and boom, and then she's gone, and the PMAC erupted. And let's not discount the fact that this was on national television. The game was out on ESPN. on the mothership,
right? And
as she said afterwards, it was time. She's kind of smiled a little bit. And I will say this. And aside from that, people who have been wondering about the whole Angel Reese, Kim Mulkey relationship in the wake of her
whole exchange was telling. Yes.
We have a picture with the little short story I wrote of Angel holding Kim back. She went out to get her, and apparently she yelled at Kramer Robertson and said, "Kramer, come help me with your mom," because he was in the game, and that was pretty funny. But there's. I think they're good. I think that's another example that things are okay with between Angel and Kim. So it was theatrics. Like as we've said since Kim has been here, she's part of the show,
right?
And she knows she's part of the show.
This was also, in my opinion, maybe like a sort of a pick your spot moment. You do it against Northwestern State,
exactly.
You also get the players fired up. You, in some ways, build a little political capital with your players because hey, she's out there fighting for us, that kind of thing. And also, coaches they have all all sorts of ulterior motives. Something I remember a coach telling me one time that his players really needed a break. They were kind of beat up. This is a basketball coach. They're beat up and just kind of worn out. He wanted them to be able to take a break, but he didn't want them to lose their edge, their mental edge, or to sort of feel like they can take it on, get on easy street, so to speak. So he purposely pitched a fit in practice, upbraided him pretty good, and had a couple of choice words for him that we can't say here on a family podcast. And decided to kick everybody out of practice. You're all gone. Your effort is bleepity, bleepity, bleep. You got to go. This is unacceptable, blah, 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 blah. Well, he was doing it not really because their effort was good or bad or anywhere in between. He was doing it because they needed a break. Mm-hmm. They needed a physical break. And so, but he also didn't want them to think that, well, okay, I can just, knock off and take it easy or whatever. So, anyway, this is another one of these sorts of tactics. Well, I'm going to get the crowd fired up. I'm going to put on a show for the cameras at ESPN, but I'm also going to maybe build a little political capital with the players' loyalty. So it'll be fun, as always, watching this team as they go down the road.
I texted Bob Starkey, who the longtime assistant who came back under Mulkey, and he took the rest of the way. I said, way to bring home that 45-point win. He said, yeah, they give me a big enough cushion. I didn't have to mess it up. But yeah, I think Kim, sometimes, I think people get a lot of things wrong about Kim Mulkey, quite frankly. We could spend a whole hour talking about that. But I think one of the things is that she's kind of out of control. She's more calculating than people give her credit for.
That was a calculated move.
Absolutely.
I'll go to my grave thinking that was a calculated
100%.
move. So we will keep tabs on Kim. We'll keep tabs on the LSU's recruiting class. Signing day, of course, is Wednesday. We will keep tabs on the rest of the LSU football program, of course, as they continue to prepare for the Wisconsin Badgers, 11 a.m. January 1st, down in Tampa, Florida. So we will be back on Thursday to do just that and all that. We're here every Monday and Thursday. We're here on all our social channels, specifically the LSU Tigers on NOLA.com YouTube channel. You can catch us live there. If you don't catch us live there, you can catch us after the fact. We are also on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever other finer podcasts are found. Please subscribe to The Advocate. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/subscribe and get a hold of our newsletter. Instead of just staring at these beautiful faces here, you can also read their words, read their written stories, and they're obviously gifted writers. Stay up to date with all the latest headlines. You go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. You can sign up for that. It's a daily newsletter. We are brought to you every Monday and Thursday by Champion Wealth Strategies. To learn more about Champion Wealth Strategies, please go to their website, championwealthstrategies.com, and plan like a champion today. It'll be a great time. We'll be back on Thursday to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, to all those who celebrate, and Happy Holidays and all that. For Scott Rabalais, for Wilson Alexander, for Amelia Cotton behind the glass, I'm Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.